Hello, how are you? It's Margot Mastery, your heartfelt CFO. I am super excited to be here live with you. I am going to take a hot minute and double check that all our tech is working. If you are new to my channel, I would love for you to say hello. If you are live or on our replay, please feel free to check where you are from and that we can meet you and learn more about you. I own and operate Heartfelt CFO and Tax Services, and I come on here to share different strategies and tips for mental health business owners around business tax and accounting and all of the in between. And today's topic is knowing the difference between profit and income. So much in those words, right? Let's just take a minute and learn and understand what those words are. Sometimes the accounting lingo could be so confusing, while it could easily also talk to you from a basic standpoint of what it really is. So, um, I want to start off by saying is that any session of what we make is basically our income, or otherwise known as revenue. So, for instance, if you make $150 per session, that is the business's income. So, if you make 10 sessions a day, we can do the math, 150 times 10, and that is the business's income. It has nothing to do with the business owner's income at that point. We're just talking from the business standpoint. Now, it could get a little technical where, depending on the entity that you are, like maybe you're not operating in an entity and you're operating for yourself, that you're kind of like, hey, I'm operating for myself. So is that still considered my income? Regardless, the word income is before expenses. It's the total fee of what you make per session. Now, let's say, for instance, you're making money for something else. Overall income is what you make from the get go. Now, there's all sorts of questions of when you get taxed, how you get taxed. The simplest standpoint is technically your taxes get taken after expenses. However, it's learning the ins and outs after we make that gross income. So let's say you have 100 clients and it's 150 a session, so that's $15,000. So for the sake of this example, you have 100 clients and then 150. Now, a lot of you can also be saying, hey, I don't get to charge 150 because of insurance. It might be private pay and all of these things. But again, for the sake of this example, we have to start from somewhere. Now, we all have expenses from there. There's rent, there's the cost of doing business. If we have therapists, if we have consultants, we have all sorts of different people helping us from the mental health team. Now, those expenses come from our top line income. So let's say for this example, from that $15,000. And let's just make up the example that we had $10,000 of expenses. In there, it could be all sorts of things: rent, independent contractors, our consultants of all the different levels, whichever ones we need, which now will bring us to that bottom line of what's called profit. So profit is actually what the business is profiting. And even if you're at the independent contractor level, that you're not operating in an entity, which would be like an LLC, S Corp, and so on, that now we have a profit of $5,000. Now, I want to talk about the expenses for a minute at this point because this is where it gets confusing for a lot of people. Tracking those expenses, and again, in this example, the $10,000 is your key to this step of reducing your taxes so that you pay less taxes and have the correct profit calculated for taxes and then for purposes of knowing the potential of what the business is actually making. Okay? Now, in all those sense, you can have in those expenses, you could have W-2 workers. It really doesn't matter. The thing is that those expenses are taken from your top line income, right? An accountant like myself would call it top line, might call it revenue, might call it income, but that's all the stuff that starts at the top. Now, once we have our profit, that is what the taxes will technically be taken from in order to calculate how much we owe. Now, another thing I also want to point out is that the real measure of the financial health of our business is knowing and understanding our expenses. Truth is, so much of the time, people are wanting to do expenses just because it's for tax purposes, and it's actually the last reason to do it, or in my book. Choose the expenses in your business that's going to help you operate and move forward and move to the capacity that brings your business and your business culture and values moving forward. Because if you're doing things just because for tax purposes, doesn't mean the business needs them. What the business needs is what's going to bring the business forward. The right team, the right office space, unless you can work remotely, and anything of that nature. Now, I actually had a conversation with a client last week around this topic, and all the apps were becoming like cumbersome because it was totaling up to a fee that he was uncomfortable with. You can clearly tell. And he was trying to justify the free version and moving those tasks into a human to be able to do them. Now, when life gets busy, a human it's very difficult for a human to outbeat what a app can do if it's set up properly. So lots of times we want to do, as mental health business owners, the bookkeeping ourselves. So we'll try to do QuickBooks ourselves. And I've seen so many business owners do this. But what happened is that we become too stretched, and then we don't have the right things in order because we don't have the right apps in place. We had a client, I think it was like a week or two ago, and the email was saying that they want like an affordable app solution for this. Now, the definition for affordable is different all over the place. And for me, what's affordable is not what's affordable for you. But what I want to share to you and kind of loop this together is around expenses is that it's kind of like the idea of buying time when you have staff, when you're using apps and deciding expenses for your business. Is it going to bring you forward in business and be able to help you be capable of more than you would without that app? Is it going to solve a problem in the business that you can just write home about it and watch it happen? Now, we all know life happens as a mom, as a person. And I can tell you that when I need to step away from the business, what works for me is my processes and systems that I can build my needs in those times that I get to do the things and be able to show up well, not just for my team and for my clients. I'm going to talk about for myself, because as business owners, we put ourselves way often last, that we don't realize that the whole way to move a business forward and to manage this profit and continuously have this be healthier in a growing way is that how we take care of ourselves to take care of a lot of things. Now, by the time my daughter wakes up in the morning, I could have a full day of stuff done. I mean, how many women out there have the same thing we could have done on the personal level? Laundry, tidy up, put some food to marinate, make breakfast, put up a pot of coffee. Of course, start your morning with water, drink the water, walk the dog, health, movement, all of these things, journaling, meditation, you name it. If we don't show up for ourselves, it really doesn't matter what processes that you have in place. It's going to complement all of the things that I just talked about to help happen. Because I can tell you myself, I woke up today to a number of fires that I had to I almost think of like Rocky for my morning. Like he comes in and he prepares and he's like, you see him on the side with like the dukes and he's preparing for his target of what's going in the ring. And as a business owner, a CFO, a single mom, as a speaker, all of these different titles that I have, I have fires to burn almost every day, all day, and it's how I am resilient in them, how I show up. And if you remember nothing from today around profit and income, think of where like Rocky goes into the ring and he's kind of like punching out the target because right he wants to win. So how do we win in business? Taking care of ourselves, however you see that fit. And moving back into the numbers and loop this together into income and profit, we want to look at the expenses and say, hey, is this moving the business forward? There could be a bonus where, for tax purposes, it's moving us forward and we're going to get a deduction. Totally. From an operations standpoint, I want you to look at the expenses and make sure it fits. Now, I can tell you, even just this month, I think it was, or like the end of that last month, because it's only a few days into the current month now. And I was looking at expenses that I thought were fit for the business. And I'm like, we totally don't need this anymore. We totally need something else. And it could be because the business shifts and changes. Nothing is linear in business and in life. So as things shift and change, maybe you have to pay for an app for another month. Maybe you have to pay for a professional for another month or two because you're in an agreement. However, when you own an integrity to the agreements that you have out there, it's going to own you back. Now, just yesterday, I realized I was in an agreement with something. However, on the other side, though, it wasn't coming through. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to stay suffocated in this agreement, or am I going to look to pull out despite what I'm in there? Now, I know the consequences of pulling out of an agreement, and I made a decision that I don't want to be sucked dry every single time with this monthly thing that's supposed to be a luxury for my daughter and I that is like turning into a headache. So lots of times, even though we have to make rougher decisions and things are not working exactly the way we think we're trying to resolve, just to loop this together is, does the expensive see fit? And chances are there is a way for it to be tax deductible, but for here, that you can measure your profit, you can measure your income. I wanted you to understand this and have a basis to work from, because there's nothing harder than to run a mental health practice, pay all these consultants, and not know how much you're making. And it could be hard because insurance has to reimburse, and sometimes it could be 73, it could be 76. All these little differences, they add up. And, a client said something to me very important and very profoundly. And she was like, I may not always get paid more, that these contractors or workers at this point, her team needs more money. So all of these things we need to weigh. And to loop this together is sometimes the cost benefit of keeping something on, regardless of how much we're making in business, is that it helps you move forward. So like I was telling you, in an app, it could happen. It's also with the team to carry forward in business. And to close this again, a loop with a story, is that we had a client who, over the course of into the end of the year, into this year, where the current balance was a problem and carrying the expenses and saying that he had to catch up. And what I said to him is like this: business isn't friendly all the time. It's just not friendly. And if you want the business to continue moving forward, we can't always expect that the other side of people are going to wait. We sometimes have to just put in the extra money so that the business moves forward. And when we believe in our products and what we're doing, the business will keep giving and giving you back. That temporary loan that possibly you're doing, it won't matter because you can take it back because the business is going to produce. It's just been a timing issue. And lots of times in these timing issues, it starts to mess with our minds. Profit, income, taxes, expenses, and we start to go into this loop. However, the shortfall with that all is that the easiest thing to do is to think about it in two categories. Either we have some type of business line of credit or personal line of credit or home equity line, depending on where you are in the process, or there's an exorbitant extra cash flow there to catch all in these things. We can get caught in our mind when something happens in business that we want to make sure it never happens again. Great. However, the resiliency of putting different measures in place, because it's not always possible that it won't happen to that degree, that we can always avoid it. Because sometimes business is coming at us. Remember? It's kind of like my morning today. It was kind of like the Rocky move of trying to like, how quickly can I get through these battles? So I hope you enjoyed this live today. Any questions, as always, let me know what you took away from this. I would love to hear from you and start to calculate your profit. Pay attention to your profit, whatever the number is. And let's make our steps from there so that you can move the needle and that your business will move forward, that it will fit your values and your culture. Talk soon, and I look forward to hearing from you all.